I'm going to show you how to draw blonde hair with Polychromos colour pencils. Hi, my name's Gemma and I want to help you improve your art skills. If it's your first time here, don't forget to click the subscribe and the notify bell so you never miss an art tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to draw blonde hair with coloured pencils. I've already done the sketch so I can get straight in with the colours. The first thing I like to do whenever I use colour pencils is put down a base layer. And for this base layer, I'm using the lightest colour that I've selected for my blonde hair, which is the Ivory colour. When I choose colours, I use my swatches. If you'd like to watch a video on how I go about using swatches for colours, then I'll pop a link in the description to a video that explains all of it. So I'm just covering all of the area of hair with the Ivory pencil, just so I have a base and I'm not working off bare paper. As a general rule, when I work with colour pencils, I like to work from light to dark and back to light. So I started with Ivory, which is the lightest colour, and now I'm moving on to burnt ochre, which is the second lightest. And what I'm doing here is just adding in the first little bits of shading. To do this, I'm working in soft flicking motions in the direction of the hair. To create that nice soft look that I'm going for with the hair, I don't want to go in too hard too soon and create really hard lines. I need them to be really nice and soft lines. There's a couple of key things to think about when you're drawing realistic hair. First off, you want to draw clumps of hair rather than individual hairs, and you'll find that hair does naturally divide itself into sections. The other thing is to always build up your colours slowly. Not only does this create softer looking hair, but it also means if you make a mistake, it'll be much easier to correct it rather than if you go in really soon with hard colours. As far as where I'm putting this colour, I'm putting it everywhere that isn't extremely light. So there are some areas of this hair that has bright light cast on it, and I'm avoiding those particular areas of shine, but I'm putting this colour everywhere else. And you can see that on areas that are darker, I am going a little bit darker, and on areas that are lighter, I am going lighter, just to start trying to get those clumps of hair in, but I'm not too concerned about being accurate at this time. Now I'm happy with the very lightest colours, I can move into the more mid-tones, and I'm going to start this with the Bistre. I think Bistre is one of the most important colours for blonde hair. It's quite a light brown, and as most blonde hair is made up of a series of shadows, the brown is perfect for both adding little shadows in between the hairs, but also as a background for adding larger shadows in the darker areas. And you'll be able to see as we go on how this builds up. As I go through and put the Bistre in, I'm adding it to any areas that are mid-tone or darker. And as I'm adding this, you can start to see how the clumps of hair are being defined. I'm working in exactly the same way as before, with soft flicking motions still going in the direction of the hair. And you can see as I near to the end of using the Bistre, how it is starting to look like a head of hair, but a very washed out head of hair. But that's fine, that's exactly how we want it to look at this point. I'm moving on to a darker brown now, not the darkest brown, but the second to darkest brown, to start filling in the areas of shadow. Now you'll notice while I'm doing this, and throughout the rest of the video, you'll keep seeing my hand come away from the paper, off camera, and then back on. Every time you see that, I'm sharpening my pencil. Something that's very important when drawing hair is a sharp pencil. You won't be able to get nice thin strokes unless you have a super sharp pencil. I find the Swordfish pencil sharpener very good for this, but any good pencil sharpener will do the trick. As this pencil is just for the darker areas of shadow, you'll see I'm using a lot less of this than I've been using of the previous colours, and I'm still just going to work my way through filling in those darker areas. Now when you're working on hair, you could work on each section individually and work it through from beginning to end, but I personally like to work on a head of hair as a whole piece. Not only do I do this because I think it makes a more consistent colour of hair, but I personally also feel like it comes together faster, or at least it feels like it comes together faster. Although I should stress that drawing hair isn't a super fast process. To give you an idea, I spent 4 hours drawing this head of hair. Now I'm starting to add in the Walnut Brown, and this is as dark as I'm going to go. A good rule of thumb for drawing blonde hair is to not use black as your darkest colour, use dark brown. If you use black, it's just going to look really fake and it's going to be too much for how light the hair is. And now that I'm at this darker colour, I am pressing a bit firmer and making sure that the colour is a bit deeper. You can see as I add in this dark how little I'm using. It's only the very occasional bit around the top where there's quite a shadow, and then there's a bit of her underneath of her hair poking through at the side, a little bit there, but that's mostly the only places it's going. And now I'm getting towards the end of this. You can see I've got a very good framework in that I can now add back those colours I've used on top much deeper and make it more vibrant. Although I will be using a couple of other colours as well, I am going to go back through all of those colours I've used already. So let's start with the slightly lighter brown that I was using before. I'm going about this in exactly the same method, but just being a little bit firmer and more definite with my marks. And now I've got this framework behind, I can be confident that I'm putting these marks in the right place. The brown areas at the moment, in comparison to the rest of the drawing, are looking a bit dark, but once the lighter colours go on here as well, it'll all blend together and will look like blonde hair. Now I'm happy with this darker brown, I'm going to move on to a couple of different colours, and some that you might think are a little bit peculiar. I'm going to start off by using a grey. The grey I'm using is a sort of medium toned warm grey. I'm primarily using it for the lighter shadowed areas. It'll just add a little bit of extra depth and a little bit of warmth to these areas, and once the other colours are on top of it, it won't show that it's a grey. The other colour I'm using is this kind of pinky earthy colour, which again I'm using in a similar way, and it will add that warmth to the hair. And now I'm happy with those couple of bits, I'm going to go back to a colour I was using earlier, which is the burnt ochre. You'll see that I'm actually covering the vast majority of the hair with this colour again now, but avoiding the areas of shine that are on the hair. You may have noticed that I've skipped a colour here and I haven't done that light brown Bistre colour again yet. I'll be putting down that other brown, the Bistre colour, a little bit later, once I've got these other lighter, brighter colours to the vibrancy I want them. I don't want to do that brown and it gets muted by these lighter colours, which is why I'm leaving it until a bit later. Now the last colour that I'm using that I haven't used before now is the cream colour. I just want to add a little bit of background of a yellow note, and the cream is a little bit more yellow, but a very light pale yellow. And I'm just going to use this very lightly, just add a slight undertone of it, but I don't want it to look garish. You can see that it's very subtle. And now back to the colour that I think at this point really transforms it into looking like blonde hair, back to the Bistre colour. Now I'm using this partly to go over the darker bits and blend them into the lighter bits, but also I am using little lighter strokes on the light parts as well, just to further add to that texture of the hair. So we're not finished yet, but you can see what a huge difference it makes putting that colour over the base. I'm just going to increase the shadow in a few areas using my darkest brown, and then I'm going to move on back to the ivory colour. I'm going back over the whole head of hair with the ivory colour, similar to how I did at the beginning, but this time I'm pressing quite a bit firmer. I'm still using those hair-like strokes, but I'm using it as a way to blend all of the underneath colours together to make the hair look more natural. I'm also using it to add to these hairs at the base to make them appear a bit more wispy. And now the last thing to do is to add in those little flyaway baby hairs. And to do this, I'm going back to my trusty old Bistre colour. I'm going to add some very light flicks of the pencil around the edge, making sure that I'm not being too regimented in this. I want it to be pretty random so it looks natural. Subtlety is key on this. I'm going to add a few flicks similar to this in the middle of the hair as well, just to help add to the natural look. And then that's it, it's finished. Do click the subscribe and the notify bell because I will be doing videos shortly on how to draw brown and black hair. I'll pop links in the description when they're up. And as always, if you found this video helpful, give it a like. Happy drawing guys, I'll see you in the next one.